including several Messerschmitt jets. Nevertheless, the constant barrage of German air raids and heavy traffic proves too much for one bridge. March 17th, disaster strikes. Under the extreme stress from the non-stop bombings and constant use, the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen suddenly collapses. 25 American engineers working to reinforce it are killed.
Fortunately, however, they built several assembly bridges across the line, and those were the ones that took the heavy load after the Remagen Railroad Bridge collapsed.
With several thousand troops already on the other side, the Allies remain poised for the final push into Berlin as the Western Allies mass their forces along the Rhine. About 300 miles east, the Soviets are extending their grip along the Oder River. Engaged in fierce battles as they drive through the eastern countryside, the Red Army is also closing in on Berlin. March 13th, after bitter street-by-street fighting, the first Belarusian front under the command of Marshal Georgy Zhukov captures the old fortress of Kustrin. One of the last vital roadblocks in the German defense plan, Kustrin is considered the gateway to Berlin. The Russian conquest just 40 miles east of Berlin deals a major blow to the German army as their defenses continue to crumble. March 14th, the next day, the Red Army succeeds in cutting off all communications between Königsberg, a small port city between Poland and Lithuania along the Baltic Sea, and the German forces fighting in the Braunsberg Pocket, about 40 miles southwest. Farther south, in Czechoslovakia, the German army commits what remains of the 6th Panzer Army to hold off the Soviet offensive. But Germany's depleted and exhausted troops are no match for the Red Army. March 16th, 2 days later, the Soviets regroup and launch a massive assault. The Soviets introduced 2 fresh armies of the 3rd Ukrainian Front to counter German forces near Budapest. One by one, Germany's occupied territories in the east are falling into the hands of the Red Army. Now the Soviets hold virtually the entire Oder-Neisse River line as far south as Gorlitz. The Red Army is now just 40 miles outside of Berlin. The heart of the Third Reich and its maniacal architect, Adolf Hitler, are within Zhukov's grasp. This week, as the Russians prepare to mount their final drive into Berlin, conditions inside the besieged German capital deteriorate rapidly. March 13th, Berlin. 2,500 civilians die in Allied air raids. More than 100,000 are now homeless.
For the residents of Berlin, those final weeks and that final month must have been hell. A very dangerous place to be, obviously, with all of the shell fire going on. You see pictures of people living in apartments with no walls, people hanging up their laundry across the gaping holes in their houses and apartment buildings. So it was this very dangerous, almost subterranean existence. Much of Berlin was living underground, either in cellars or in the subway tunnels.
Rooms once filled with warmth, light, and the chatter of families now lie in ruins. Pinned to one pile of rubble is a letter informing a German soldier where he can find his family if he ever returns home. Anticipating the advance of Allied forces, Hitler orders prisoners in concentration camps along the front to be relocated deeper into Germany's interior.
The SS who ran the camps began dismantling them, attempting to cover up their tracks, to move the inmates out. Those that had been fortunate enough to still be alive were then sent on terrible transports, in some cases marched, or sent off in unheated boxcars to camps inside Germany. Now, camps are made to hold 10, 12, 13,000 people.
Who's hungry?
Hold 40,000, 50,000, 60,000. Conditions in the camp deteriorated. And indeed, people were dying in large numbers from all sorts of diseases: scarlet fever, dysentery, pneumonia. People worked to death, starved to death in these places. They were just brutal, brutal places.
Those unable to walk are either hung or shot. Boys and old men called up to fight in Hitler's home guard, the Volkssturm, are often ordered to commit the murders.